Hi, and welcome to the CWU Running Start virtual information session. We're very happy that you decided to join us today, and we're happy that you're interested in our program. My name is Angela Riviera, and I am the Associate Director of the Running Start program at CWU. I'm also going to introduce you to some of our other staff. Chelsea Braun is the Advisor and Recruiter for Running Start students at Sammamish, and Grace Pearsons is a Graduate Assistant for Advising for Running Start students in Ellensburg. Chelsea will be your contact person if you are a Sammamish student. Grace and I will be your contact person if you are an Ellensburg or online student. What we're going to talk about today is what is Running Start, how to get started, our admission requirements, things to keep in mind in terms of picking out classes, how credits will transfer, resources available to you, benefits of participating in the program, things to keep in mind as you're making your decision, and steps to get started. We will also have two other recordings, one that is specific to Sammamish and one that is specific to Ellensburg, with frequently asked questions that come up at our in-person sessions. If you find after watching these recordings that you still have other questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we will be happy to meet with you. So let's get started. What is Running Start? Running Start is a program that allows for eligible 11th and 12th grade students to take courses at colleges and universities tuition free. CWU is one of these institutions. Students earn both high school and college credits for these courses and are able to accelerate their progress through the education system. An important thing to keep in mind is that college credits are worth more than high school credits are. So if you participate in Running Start, you're going to finish your high school requirements pretty early, and you'll be able to then focus on taking other classes that are of interest to you, more advanced classes that maybe aren't part of your high school requirements, or working on college goals. At Central, we require all students who are applying to Running Start to meet the same admission requirements as any other CWU student. If you have a 3.0 GPA or higher at your high school, we will automatically admit you to the program once you submit an application with your transcript. But if your GPA is below a 3.0, you can still apply to the program and will be considered for admission. If your GPA is between a 2.5 and a 2.99, we will ask you to submit placement scores showing readiness for English 101 or college level math, depending on what your goals are. If your GPA is between a 2.0 and a 2.49, we will also ask you to submit a personal statement along with your test scores showing what it is that you're planning to do with Running Start, what your plan is for success, how it's going to meet your educational goals, and explain if there were any circumstances that happened that caused you to have a GPA that is below 2.5. In general, we're looking for students to have placement into English 101. The reason for that is because many college classes are going to require you to be able to read and write at a college level. So for instance, if you decided you were going to take US history at the college, but you didn't place into English 101, you might struggle a little bit in that class because there's going to be a lot of reading and a lot of writing. So we want to make sure that you're going to be set up for success. So we would like to see students placing into English 101. If your GPA is below a 2.0, we're not able to admit you to the program. What we would ask you to do is focus on your high school classes, and maybe you can apply second semester when your grades have improved, or maybe come in senior year after you've had time to bring your GPA up. If you're a homeschool student, you are very, very welcome to apply to our program. We will ask that you create a homeschool transcript indicating what type of curriculum you've been using, what courses you've been taking. This in part we ask you to do because when you apply to a university as a regular student, you'll have to do that. And so it's helpful if you get started on that now. And it also gives us an idea of what it is that you've been doing and what other requirements you might need to work on as you're thinking about college admissions. We'll also ask you to take a placement test, again, to show that you're ready for English 101. We do evaluate homeschool students on an individual basis because there is so much variation in homeschooling. So we might reach out to you to ask about what your goals are, what you're planning to do. We're very open to homeschool students. About 10% of our students at both of our campuses are homeschool, and they tend to be rock stars in the classroom. But we do like to talk with you to find out what it is that you're planning to do. So we do require placement testing for admission if your GPA is below a 3.0, and whether your GPA is below a 3.0 or not, we require all students to take placement tests if they're planning to enroll in English classes, math classes, and some science courses like chemistry or physics. Acceptable placement tests include AccuPlacer in English or math, SAT in English, ACT in English, Smarter Balance for English, that's the test that you take at your high school, and ALEX for math. Many of the placement tests that we accept are available at CWU. You can take the AccuPlacer or the ALEX at our Sammamish and Ellensburg locations, and you can also take the ACT Residual at our Ellensburg campus. The AccuPlacer has study guides available on our website. There is an English placement test for AccuPlacer and a math placement test for AccuPlacer. I would encourage you, if you're going to take those exams, to review the study guides and see if those are going to work for you. The ALEX exam is strictly for math. This exam consists of a series of 5 total attempts. The first one you'll do from home, and it's a diagnostic tool. So it's not going to count for placement, but it is going to see where you're at in your readiness. It will give you practice tutorials to work on, and then you have access to 4 subsequent attempts that you can take on campus that you will be able to use for placement. If you have questions about the test, please feel free to reach out to our offices, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can schedule the testing through the website listed here, cwu.edu/testing, and if you are a low-income student, we can help pay for your test. Please make sure you let us know ahead of time before paying so we can give you a voucher. We get a lot of questions about which classes Running Start students can take. We treat our Running Start students like any other student at CWU, which means that you can take any class you want as long as you meet the prerequisites for it. So if you want to take a cultural anthropology class, you can just go into it. There's no prerequisites for that. If you want to take calculus, you have to take the placement exam to make sure that you're ready for it. Most students take 100 and 200 level courses, just like any other college freshman or sophomore. We do have some students who might take more advanced classes. There's classes like psychology of video games. I think it's a 300 level class, but it's open for students, so you can take anything that looks good to you, as long as you meet the prerequisites for it. While you can take any class you want, we are going to strongly encourage you to prioritize taking your high school graduation requirements. One thing that's unique at Central is that we require all of our Running Start students to do individual advising with us every single quarter. When you do that, we are going to be encouraging 1, high school graduation requirements, 2, general education classes, and then 3, classes that might work for your majors. The good news is your high school graduation requirements are going to strongly overlap with your general education requirements. So for instance, if you need to take English 101 for high school, English 101 is also a general education requirement. If you need to take U.S. history for high school, that also satisfies a general education requirement, and so on. So we are going to work really hard to make sure that you finish your graduation requirements as early as possible. For instance, for fall quarter, if you're a junior, we might say, okay, let's take English 101 and U.S. history. If you're full-time, maybe we'll add another class for an elective that will also work towards gen ed. We want to make sure that you're maximizing your time here and that you're taking classes that are going to fit your needs. Once you take your high school graduation requirements, which are going to overlap with gen ed, we will then focus primarily on getting general education classes done, either at CWU or at the institution that you would like to go to after you finish graduating from high school. General education are the classes that everybody takes, no matter what they're going to major in. So for instance, when I was in college, I majored in U.S. history. I still had to take classes that weren't related to history. I had to take math, I had to take science classes, I had to take economics, things like that. If you're going to major in something like engineering, you still have to take classes like history, literature, sociology, that kind of thing. So what we'll do is look at what are the general education requirements for the school that you want to go to, and then make sure that we're taking classes that will meet those needs. As you're picking out classes and thinking about where you want to go, we will also want to think about how are those credits going to transfer. Credits do transfer to other institutions, but we do need to confirm that they're going to transfer the way we want them to. So for instance, Western might have different requirements for their general education. A lot of it's going to be the same, but they might have a class that needs to focus on diversity. And CWU might have classes that focus more on social justice. So what we can do is look at what's the Western requirement, what is their equivalency guide, and then what class at CWU is going to satisfy that. As I mentioned, credits are generally going to transfer. Credits taken through Central Washington University transfer to other schools the same way that credits taken at our state community colleges and other state colleges would transfer. So they're going to transfer to all public colleges and universities in Washington state. They also transfer to most private and public universities out of state. There are some colleges that have policies that They might only take 35 transfer credits. They might only take 60 transfer credits. They might not take any transfer credits. That number of schools who don't take any transfer credits is very small, but we can find that out based on you letting us know where you want to go, and then we can plan your education goals based on that. So if we know that you're going to go to a school that takes 60 transfer credits, maybe you'll decide that you're going to be a part-time student and we'll just take 10 credits a quarter for 2 years. You would have 60 credits you can transfer. Maybe we know that they will transfer certain classes but not others, or maybe you need to take a whole year of foreign language for it to transfer. We can figure that out. Just work with our advisors and we will try to assist you to make sure that your classes are going to work for what you want to do. There are a lot of benefits to participating in the Running Start program. One of the main benefits that I am always telling students about is Running Start is basically the best scholarship program in Washington State. You are able to earn up to 2 years of college credit without having to pay tuition. This is a big deal for many families. And it's nice because it's not based on if you play sports or being the top student or participating in different activities. It is strictly based on your ability to be admitted to the Running Start program and be successful. Another big benefit is that you can complete your high school requirements early. So if you take English 101 with us, and that is a 5-credit class, you will be able to earn a whole year's worth of English in 10 weeks. If you take a math class with us, you will be able to earn a whole year's worth of math in 1 quarter. If you still need your foreign language requirements, if you take Spanish 151, 152, 153 with us, that will count as 3 years of high school Spanish. So it's really easy to get your high school requirements done. As I said, our advisors are going to pressure you pretty hard to get your requirements done early. Many of our students, if they're full-time starting as juniors, have their high school requirements done by fall of their senior year. So work with us so we can make sure that you can get on track and get done with your high school requirements, because then you can take whatever you want for your college goals. There's also greater diversity in course choices. We are a university, so we have a large catalog of options available. You can take classes with us like cybersecurity. You can take cultural anthropology, psychology of video games, sociology goes to the movies. There's a wide variety of classes. You can take multivariable calculus, linear algebra. So there's a lot more options than your high school might have available for you. It's also an easier transition to the university after graduation. So one great thing about Running Start is you are a college student when you're in Running Start, and you are taking college classes and you are held to the same standards, but you have a lot more support in the program than regular freshmen do. You have your family that you're still living at home with, you have your high school counselor, you have your high school teachers, your high school friends, you have the Running Start office, so you have a lot of cushions to help you if you encounter any problems. We reach out to you, you're available. All anyone in our offices do is work with Running Start students. So if you ever need anything, you can just come in and talk to us. If you're confused about a class and you're a little bit afraid of talking to your professor, you can come in and we can talk about, okay, if the professor says this, what would you say? How would you handle this situation? You have a lot of support. Many students also enjoy learning in a more mature academic environment. So college students are going to tend to be a little bit older, but I think what is more valuable for students is that students who are participating in Running Start and students who are at the university are here because they want to be. They're interested in learning. They're interested in the subjects that they're taking. Nobody has to be in college, so the people who are doing it tend to be of a little bit higher caliber, at least in their interest in the academic world. You can also get involved in our campus activities. At both of our campuses, we have things like study days where there's free food and you can get together with people. We have beginning of the year parties, end of the year parties. There's activities throughout the year that happen at both campuses that you can participate in. And you can still participate in your high school activities. So we have many Running Start students who are members of the band or choir, who play sports, who do student government, who have a number of other activities related to their high school that they participate in. You don't have to choose between those things. You are able to participate in the best of both worlds, or neither at all if you're none at all if you're not that interested in doing extracurriculars. Another big question we get is how much does Running Start cost? Running Start students and their families do not pay tuition as long as they're taking the number of credits that they're allowed to take. They do have to pay mandatory fees, which includes a technology fee that maxes at $30 a quarter, and class fees if you're taking a class that has a fee. That's listed in the schedule. So for instance, if you're taking a PE class, there might be like a $5 fee for materials. If you're taking a drawing class, there might be a materials fee. This is knowable. You'll see it in the schedule. So you can make the decision based on if you want to pay the fee or not. Students do have to buy their own textbooks. So books can range from $20 for some classes to, if you're taking a chemistry class that's going to last all year, it might be a $250 book, but you do get to use it all year. And they pay for their own transportation. So there are public transit options near both of our campuses, but you will have to handle that on your own. Students can take up to 15 credits tuition free, but it does depend on how many classes you're taking at your high school. So if you're not taking any classes at the high school, or if you're doing like a 0 period at the high school, you can usually you can be full-time with us. If you're taking 2 or 3 classes at your high school, you might only be taking 2 or 3 classes. You might only be taking 2 classes with us. One of the big benefits of the Running Start program is the savings that you get. So again, you can take up to 15 credits a quarter. That's 45 credits a year. If you're doing it 2 years, that's 90 credits. CWU charges around $2,700 for 15 credits a quarter. If you were attending full-time for the year, that would be over $8,000 a year. And if you attended full-time for 2 years, that would be $16,000 that you would save. And if you transfer all of your credits to another institution, that you just wouldn't have to pay for those 2 years, except for your books and your fees. So it's a pretty good deal for families. If you need assistance with buying your textbooks, you should consider applying for our book loan program. We have a program that allows us to purchase books for students to use for the quarter and then return them to us. If they qualify for free reduced lunch, if the family receives public assistance of any type, if the student is a foster youth, or if the parent is receiving unemployment. We do also have other avenues for assisting students if you don't fall into that category. So if you think you might need help, just reach out to our office and we're happy to assist you. If you qualify for this program, we can also pay for your placement testing. So please reach out to us early before you schedule your testing and let us know so we can create a voucher for you. A big question we get when we do these things is, how do Running Start students do in their classes? The answer is Running Start students overall do really well. Last fall, 45% of our students had a 3.5 GPA or higher, and the average GPA for Running Start students was a 3.3. 90% of our students meet our academic standard, which is 2.0 or higher, and overall the students do well. With that 10% that isn't meeting our academic standard, after many years of working with Running Start students, what I can say is usually if students aren't meeting the standard, it's because either they're not going to class for whatever reason, or because they have some personal stuff going on that's making it hard for them to be successful. We are here to support those students. So if you aren't going to class, it's good to just come in and be honest with us so that we can maybe withdraw you and you don't get a bad grade. And if you have stuff going on, we want to be able to help you. So if you need assistance with tutoring, we can get you connected to that. If you need assistance with counseling, we can get you connected with that. Our goal is to reduce that 10% to 0 would be ideal, but definitely to have that be a smaller number. And that requires students reaching out to us and letting us know what we can do to support them. On average, our students take around 10 credits a quarter. So many of them start out as juniors, taking 10 credits, maybe 2 classes. And then when they are seniors, they frequently come and start going full-time with us. While there are a lot of benefits to the program, there are some things that you want to keep in mind as you're making your decision. You will be creating a high school and a college transcript, which means that everything you take at CWU is going to go on a CWU transcript and a high school transcript. If you're doing well in your classes, that's going to be great because you're going to have these high credit classes going on your high school transcript with great grades. That's going to bring up your GPA or maintain a good GPA, and that's awesome. But if you fail your classes, that means that you're going to have Fs on your high school transcript, which you don't want. And it means you're going to have a college transcript, which you do have to share with other institutions when you apply that also don't have good grades. So it's important that you reach out to our office if you need help, if you need to withdraw from a class, if you need to get connected to resources so that we can avoid students getting into that situation. Classes are also going to move at a much faster pace than your high school classes. Our quarters run over 10 weeks. And if you are at a semester school, you're taking classes over 3.5 months or possibly a year. So it's important to keep in mind that you're not going to have as much time in the classroom to work on your assignments or to study or to work with other students. You're going to need to have time outside of class to do those things. We generally recommend that students set aside 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour in class to get those things done. This won't be true for you for every single class, but until you are able to figure out how you do in your classes, it's important that you have that time available. The program isn't free. As we mentioned, students do have to pay for books and fees and transportation. We can assist students, as I mentioned, with books if they qualify for our book loan program. Class availability is not always guaranteed. So we've never had a situation at either campus where a student wasn't able to graduate because the classes that they needed weren't available. But we do have situations where sometimes the student is only available to take classes at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and maybe the classes they want aren't actually available at those times. This happens at the high school too, right? Classes are offered when they're offered. So it's important that we have a good idea of what all of your high school requirements are. So that way, if we know, okay, for fall, you wanted to take English and US history to satisfy your graduation requirements, and you can only come at 9 and 10, maybe history is not available until 12. But if we know that you also need political science to satisfy your senior civics requirement, maybe that is available at 10 and we can have you take that class instead. So it is important to know those things. We can't always guarantee every class you want is available when you want it. You can find this out in the class schedule, and we will always work with you to make sure that we get you into a class schedule that makes sense. This is an adult environment, it's college campus, so Running Start students, as I mentioned earlier, they're treated like any other student. The expectation is that you're ready to enter an adult environment. So content in classes is not going to be censored just because there are high school students in the class. I would suggest that if you have concerns about this, you talk with one of our advisors or ask for a syllabus of the course to see what's going to be covered. It's much better if we know upfront if there's going to be concerns, and maybe we can search for a different class, than for a student to be in the class and find out midway that there's content that a parent or student is uncomfortable with. Another thing to be aware of is FERPA. FERPA is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. That applies to K through 12, and it applies to higher education. In the K through 12 realm, that means that parents are always able to go in and access their students' records. In the college world, parents are not able to do that. The only person who has access to a student's record is that student, unless they give written permission to the university to share their information with other people. When you participate in Running Start, you are actually giving us permission to share information with your high school counselor. So we do share information with high schools, but we do not share information with parents. It's important to note that even if we have a written release saying that we can share information with parents, we are not a high school, so we function differently. We don't have things like Skyward where we can just look up and see how a student's doing at any given moment. We don't really know how a student's doing until the end of the quarter when their grades come out, unless the student discloses to us that they're not doing well, in which case we would work with them to intervene and find resources or talk about maybe doing a withdrawal. But if you call us up, mid-quarter and say, how is Johnny doing in his English class? Is he attending? We're not necessarily going to know that information. Whether we have FERPA release or not, as I mentioned, we can share information with high schools. So if we have concerns, we notify our high school partners to say that, the student self-reported that they haven't gone to class in 4 weeks. That's super rare, don't worry. Or, if the student says that they're maybe not sure if they're going to be successful in the class, we do talk with the counselor about that. We always send enrollment to the counselor so they know what students are enrolled in, and we send grades as soon as they're available. The other big thing to keep in mind is that college and high school calendars usually don't align. This is really important to think about when you're considering spring break plans, or if you're considering winter travel plans. Our academic calendar is available on our website, so it's good to look at that, find out when the breaks are, and then look at your high school calendar to see if it works. But it's not good for students to be gone at the beginning or the end of the year, or the beginning or end of the quarter, when they need to be doing finals or they're getting started in classes. And that usually seems to be when some high schools are having their spring breaks. So please review that before you're making any travel plans. And if you have accommodations at your high school, it's really important that you reach out to our Disability Services office so that you can receive accommodations with us too. If you need to do that, you can just go to the cwu.edu/disability-support website, and you can create an account where they will ask you what disability you have, what services you received in the past, and what you're looking for. They will also ask you for documentation of your disabilities. So if you have a 504 plan or an IEP at your high school, you can submit that as a first step for documentation. That may be sufficient. If not, they'll reach out to you. They will work very closely with you to make sure that you have accommodations that work for you. We strongly encourage students to do this as early as possible. Every quarter I see students who tell me that they have disabilities and might need accommodations, but they'd rather wait and see what happens. It's much better if we just have accommodations in place in case we need them, and if you don't need them, then we don't have to worry about it. Another important thing to keep in mind is there's a lot of privacy policies that have to do with disability accommodations. So we can help you to get started with that process, but they are not going to share that information with us. So this will be something where you'll want to make sure that you're keeping track of your information. They will talk with parents as long as the student has given them permission. So parents can totally assist with this, particularly with documentation piece, but our office is going to be somewhat limited other than just getting you started. And speaking of getting started, if you want to apply to the program, you can go to our website, which you are probably on right now, and click on the Apply Now button. Or you can go to cwu.edu /running start/admissions and start the application. The application is going to ask you personal questions, your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, things about high school, what high school do you attend, what grade are you in, that kind of thing. It's not very long. And then you'll also need to submit a copy of your high school transcript. You can get that from your counselor. I really want to emphasize it needs to be a transcript, not a grade report. So some students will go into Skyward and they'll just print out their grade report. We actually need the one that doesn't have to be official, but the one that has, okay, for 9th grade you took these classes, you got these grades, you earned this number of credits. For 10th grade you did that. And then it has all of your milestones and everything on there. So if you can submit that, if you have a 3.0 or higher GPA, you'll get notification from us that you're automatically admitted. If your GPA is below 3.0, we will reach out encouraging you to submit test scores or a personal statement if we need that. We are going to encourage you to schedule placement testing if you're planning to take English or math, and then advise you to meet with your high school counselor to figure out which classes you need to graduate from high school, to determine whether or not you want to be part-time or full-time, and then you'll meet with us to register for classes and develop an education plan. New student advising for fall is going to take place in May and June. We highly recommend that students start Running Start in fall quarter if they're planning to take classes, because the schedules with the high school don't align very well for students to start in winter or spring. But if you are planning on coming in winter, we start advising with new students in late November. And if you plan on coming in spring, we start advising with new students in late February. For fall quarter, we have early registration for our new students. In Sammamish, that's going to start on May 6th, and in Ellensburg, that's going to start on May 26th. So while we don't have a deadline until September for the Running Start program for fall quarter, I do strongly encourage you to apply as soon as possible and to get your testing done, so that way you can meet with us and enroll in classes on those early registration dates in May. We have advisors available year-round to answer questions. So if you have questions now and want to reach out to us, we encourage you to do that. If you want to talk with us over the summer, we encourage you to do that. We're here all year to talk with you if you need anything. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned at the beginning, we do have 2 frequently asked question sessions that have been recorded that you can visit that have to do with our specific campuses. Otherwise, you are welcome to contact one of our offices and we're happy to assist you. You can reach out to the Ellensburg campus. We're in Hubler 101. Our phone number and my email is there. If you are interested in the Sammamish campus, you can just stop by the main office and let Chelsea know, or you can reach out to her at that email address or that phone number. And thank you very much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.